So welcome to the LGBT Cymru panel discussion on stigma of HIV across the scene. So I'm Baroness Mary Golds, Cardiff drag queen, Cardiff's favourite drag queen at the moment. And we've got our panel here. So Lisa, if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Lisa Power. I'm a dyke who's been around for donkey's years, but in this context, I'm currently the development worker for Fast Track Cardiff and Vale, which is a new thing that's trying to bring together all the different services working on HIV and sexual health in Cardiff and the Vale, and get more out of it, get more things going on than we have done.
Fab. Karen?
So I'm Karen, I'm the Senior Support Services Practitioner for Terence Higgins Trust Cymru. So I work with anyone in Wales that's living with HIV, but also work and support the health promotion across Wales too.
Fabulous. Our little bear, Gavin.
Hi, yes. My name's Gavin and I am a singer, but also an estate agent also. And yes, I've been living with HIV since 2001. How many years ago is that?
A lot.
A lot. Yes, and yeah, and there too. I would like to be able to help others that are living with the stigma and trying to fight their own self demons, if you like.
Fab. And Ramin?
Abderrahim. You can call me Rahim. I am part of Glitter Cymru, which is an LGBT BAME social group here in Cardiff, and I'm also the arts outreach officer of the group. I've been living with HIV since 2013, and I've been an advocate for HIV rights and HIV awareness since 2014. And also I'm a YouTuber using my platform to educate people about asylum and refugee here in the UK and also worldwide, and also raise awareness about HIV/AIDS. And I'm also have to say I'm proudly an asylum seeker here in Wales.
Oh, what a panel! What a panel we are. So for anybody watching that doesn't really know what we're doing here or the panel, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions because I'm chair, because my opinions are too sordid to go on to air to the LGBTQ Cymru. I don't even know how to say it. So I'm going to ask some questions and then I'm going to let the panel discuss. And then if I've got anything to throw in, I will. So for anybody watching who doesn't understand what HIV is, what is HIV? Who wants to go?
I can go. So
Karen?
HIV is a virus that predominantly damages the cells in your immune system, and it weakens your ability to fight everyday infections and diseases like common colds. It's commonly confused with AIDS, which is an acquired immune deficiency, which is usually describing a number of potentially life-threatening infections and illnesses, not just the one.
Right, okay then. So how is HIV passed on?
There's a number of different routes. It is passed on via sexual intercourse. They can be passed on from mother to baby with breast milk. It can be done with people that are sharing equipment in terms of injections and needles. But HIV does not live outside the human body for a very long time. So that is a low risk, but it is still a risk. But it is predominantly passed through sexual activities.
All right. So we face this wide stigma that a lot of people believe that HIV is only passed and is only present in our gay male community. Do we think that our scene and that the country as a whole still views that? And if so, why?
I think the issue is that anybody can get HIV, but it's more common amongst some groups than others. I think here in Wales, there's pretty much equal numbers of heterosexuals and gay men who have HIV, but the fact is the gay population's much smaller. So disproportionately, more gay men are at risk of HIV. and it's one of those things that's hardly talked about, I think. It threw me a lot when I came to Wales to discover how little information and health promotion was available. I mean, Terence Higgins Trust is doing its best. And there's a website about general sexual health from Public Health Wales, but very little talked about, very little addressed on the gay scene. And in Wales, it's undoubtedly the case that, you know, there is still a lot of undiagnosed HIV. There's a lot of gay men who have HIV and haven't got tested. We think that, you know, we know that around 60% of the diagnoses that are made late on when people are already unwell. You know, they've got a problem with the virus at that stage. We need to stamp that out and change that and reduce the numbers of people who are infectious and able to pass the virus on by getting people tested and into treatment. And the thing is, you're much better off once you're tested and on treatment, because you can live an ordinary life. You can live a full length life. You can do what you like once you're on treatment.
From someone who's been on the scene, I only really came into contact and found out about HIV properly, I would say. I still don't know a lot about it, but I started dating somebody who had HIV about 5 years ago, and I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about HIV. I didn't know the difference between HIV and AIDS. I didn't know about the viral count. I didn't know there was medication. I didn't know anything, because I think, especially on the gay scene, it is something that is just not talked about. We just brush it under the carpet and just carry on having our life, having our drinks, and as long as everybody's happy at that moment in time, to a point, the scene doesn't really recognize it, but it has started to recognize it more. And it wasn't until those 4 years ago that I found out, and I was like, actually, it's not as bad as what I thought. Do you know what I mean?
But I think this is related to the history of HIV here in the UK, and how it was advertised, and the trauma related to HIV to the gay community here in the UK, about that literally in the 80s, in the early 90s, HIV was synonymous of the gay disease. So and we as a human, we tend to silence and to brush up the trauma, and we don't like to talk about the trauma that often. That's why I think we are avoiding the discussion about HIV. And literally, when we are going in the scene, because I used to work in the field in Morocco, because I'm from Morocco, people and gay people are telling me, please don't talk about HIV with us. We are here to have fun. We are not here to hear any traumas. And I think it's relatable and understandable why people are not talking about it that much, because historically it relates to a lot of trauma and brings with a lot of trauma and stigma as well. That's why we have stigma around HIV, because of that trauma.
Yeah, I think in Britain we've still got that kind of stiff upper lip feel about it. It's don't cry, don't show emotion, don't do this, don't talk about horrible things. Just brush it under the carpet and get on with your life. How do you feel about it, Gav?
Do you know what? What baffles me is that, you know, only a couple of years ago, I heard that, you know, if everybody knew their status, we'd be able to extinguish HIV in a generation. Now that to me is so powerful, and I just feel like I want to stand, you know, at the entrance of a pub, you know, or a club, and just make somebody take a test almost. You know, I think because we don't think about it enough, it's not spoken about enough, and it's one of those, you know, let's think of the Terence Higgins Trust, right? That is, you know, what we know on the scene, but it's not a sexy charity. You know, it's not like not many people from day to day are touched with it, like cancer would be, for instance. So, you know, trying to get people to talk about it, it's almost like it's still tabooed. It's almost like we need to rebrand the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it totally needs rebranding, because in my mind, that was 4 years ago, it was people who get HIV haven't used protection, and it's their own fault. And that was the way that I viewed it. And that's the way that I think I had been conditioned to see it. But obviously looking into it and finding out more about it, I was able to educate myself, which is the main thing. And that's what this panel is about. It's about educating. But yeah, I totally think that it all needs re-education. That's what we need.
And that's one of the issues that I deal with on a regular basis is people just assume it's your own fault.
Yeah.
You did not take control of your own sexual health. You did not use protection. Therefore, this is your own fault. But they rule out so many different things. And anyone who's going to sit there and say that they have had no unprotected sex of any sort in their entire life, highly unlikely that that is true. It's one of those things that I say to anyone in clinic when it's new diagnosis or anyone that's been diagnosed for a long time is, if you can get through your entire adult life without picking up a single STI, it is down to, I don't want to say luck as in, yay, lucky you, it is down to luck. It can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
And I deal predominantly with new diagnosis and those already living with. I deal with sexual assaults. I deal with domestic violence. I deal with trafficking. There are so many different ways in which somebody can come to this part of their life that it never even gets discussed. It's always one way in people's minds, and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's actually sorry.
Go on. No, go on, Lisa.
It's by not talking about it that we make it much more mysterious, and we actually make it more likely that people are going to make a mistake and end up with HIV. I always say that the problem we've got in this country is we're pretty good at having sex, but we're really bad at talking about it.
Yeah.
And there is, particularly for LGBT plus people, there's still virtually no sex education in most schools.
No.
You know, there might be a bit of education about how you make babies, but there isn't anything about how to manage yourself and to negotiate for what you want and what you don't want when you're on the scene. And I think we really do ourselves a disservice. And the fact is that in Wales, there's in the whole time I've been here, which is 15 years, I've seen one HIV prevention campaign that was from the government. And the main illustration on that was a rugby ball, which I'm not sure what that's got to do with HIV. I really think we need to do a lot more education of the community. And it's not going to come from anyone else. It's got to come from us. It's got to come from the community to the community.
I mean, from my point of view, I came out when I was about 14. I had no education on HIV in school. My mother, when I came out at 14, she just said, make sure that you don't catch AIDS because you will die. And that was it. That was my sexual health. Like, that was my talk, if you like. And I was just like, oh my God, right, okay then. And I think because it's been branded as that, oh, you do this and you get this and then you this, and but that's not the case. There are so many people that are living healthy, happy lives with it as well, that it's quite fine. Yes.
No, I'm just raising my hand saying that I am living healthy and happy life. But I would just like, because you give me the mic now, because something said, wonderful Karen said that about taking the blame of contracting HIV. Not only that, it doesn't stop on that. We are also blamed of spreading the virus as well in the scene.
Yes.
And that's also another danger. That's why I think a lot of people are afraid to reveal and their status, because we are blamed for contracting the virus, and also we are blamed for spreading the virus, which is, of course, not true.
No, exactly. Gav?
Yes. Well, I'm in a relationship now, which I feel content and settled. We don't have protected sex, and he is very much negative as the day I met him. And what I do, you've seen, Mary, where I've got on stage and I'll randomly come out with just a bit of awareness talking about HIV, because I feel I have the power to do that when I'm on a stage, when I've got a captive audience. What better way than to be able to just get it out there? Because anyone that knows me, knows I live a busy, full, fun life. And when I was single, my God, I partied like the best of them. You know, I wasn't dirty. You know, I'm a nice, clean living guy, and I like to take pride in myself. So I think, you know, I'm able to be an example to others, hopefully, and inspire them if they're living with it and that, you know, they feel they need to get out.
But I think one of the problems we have is that there are far too few people like you and Abdu who feel able to talk about it. And, you know, I think there's a real problem in that if people can't see people living well with HIV, they can't see that knowing your status, taking the pills will keep you well, will keep your partners safe. You know, then it doesn't sink in. If you can't see it, you can't say it. And, you know, no matter how somebody has contracted HIV, no matter how they're living, they deserve respect and support. And we have to somehow support a lot more people to be able to go, well, what, you know, I've got HIV, it isn't stopping me working, loving, getting on with my life. But that's easy for me to say as just a worker. I think it's much more difficult. Clearly people are scared to come out because they're scared of the reactions they'll get on the scene.
Yeah, well, I know quite a few people that have said, oh, don't tell anybody, but, and that's how it is. And I'm like, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And it's nothing. Like, it is something, but it's not, nobody's on the scene's gonna like push you out the door and go, you cannot come in here. And it's not, I think it's just got that stigma and it's got that reputation. And that is just something that we need to re-educate the entire body of our community about.
It's one of the things, like, would you feel ashamed saying, I am living with diabetes? Would you feel ashamed to say, I have been diagnosed with X, Y, and Z? You wouldn't. And it's one of the only diseases that people will use maliciously as a way of ruining your life. And it's that makes it even harder. But with the stigma still attached to it massively in Wales, you know, I have conversations with people all the time, and we're all for people being open and, you know, out there with everybody and honest about who they are and what they're living with. But it is also that once you say those words, it's out there. And you can't control how other people react to that. You can only control how you react to them. And it is hard for them. It's easy for me to sit there and say, well, you're going to live until you're 105, perfectly fine, carry on. But in reality, you could lose family, you could lose friends over it just through them not understanding. You'll get the good ones that will go and educate themselves and come back and be like, I was an idiot, I'm sorry, you know, I now know what the situation is. I actually went and got tested myself, you know, because I realized I'd never been tested. And it's those conversations then that need to be happening, which are not happening as much as they need to at the moment in Wales. So things like these, all the documentaries and the news that's coming out at the moment surrounding PrEP, this is what we need to have, is just pushing it out there more.
I think as well is to go with the testing, because I didn't have a test until I was 24. And it just never even entered my head. Nobody had educated me to say, go and get tested regularly, blah, 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 blah. But I was petrified of going for a test at the age of 24.
Is that because you thought your life was going to be over if it was?
Yeah. Part of me was, I remember the first time I had a test, it was one of the tests that you do at home, you know, and you leave it, I think it's 20 minutes and then the line comes. And I was like, oh my God, like I did it, I left it upside down and I was like, what if this comes back positive? What's everyone gonna think? What's this? What's that? How am I gonna tell anyone? Will I keep it to myself? And then it came back negative and I was like, oh my God, like that panic.
You were reborn again.
Yeah, it must have been horrible. Like for people who go and it comes back positive, I just can't even imagine what they're going through at that moment. And then it's literally coming out again, do you think?
Very much so. I think it's when you're not educated, it's such a traumatic experience. I remember I remember it was my GP that diagnosed me, and I remember everything just went. I just glazed over, and I just broke down, fell on the floor, And I was like, oh my God, I've got too much I want to do in life. And you've just taken all that away from me. Well, I've just taken that away from myself. And yeah, if I was only educated just a little bit, you know, I would have been able to walk out there and know that everything was going to be okay. But actually, it took my experience and my time and to understand, and actually the professionals to thank really for getting me to the stage where I'm able to be so open and content with myself.
So
but I think that, like you said,
go on, Abdu.
okay, like you said, Gav, it's down to the education and the support that you get from your GP or from the person who is providing the testing for you. Because I remember my first time going to doing a test. I was assessed. People assessed my risks. They were telling me what is the outcome. If the outcome is this, you'll be fine. If it's positive, you're gonna go through this route, and we have medication. So preparing the assessment before it's becoming a traumatic experience, instead of like you being hit with a positive and you feel like all your life has fallen apart. I think, and and also, Gav, I think your experience was in 2001, and a lot of I think a lot of information was missing back then. Now we are in 2020. I think there is a lot of information. There is a lot of videos. There is a lot of people who come out and share their experience. So I think the reality and the trauma is less than it was back in the early 2000s compared to one. And I've seen a lot of people who are still young and they are really saying, oh yes, I'm HIV positive, and so what? And they are proud, and because of the information and the attitude, and also from the professionals and from the service providers as well, that their attitudes has changed. Because before that, even the doctors and the nurses and the service providers were very HIV phobic, if we want to call it like that, and they were afraid to provide a service. And Karen, yes, in some places you can be denied access to a service, or you can be denied access to a place if they find out that you are HIV positive. So so it's down to education and open-mindedness, and having a full conversation. And the person who is HIV positive should be assertive, and should be proud, and it should be like banging on the table and say, what the hell are you talking about? I am who I am. It's down to that as well.
It's far too unusual for people to say it, and I really understand why, because I remember, Abdu, you were on a panel last year for an event that we organised in the museum, and it was a political discussion, and you said, as a gay man who's living with HIV, and I actually felt a little ripple go around the room, and not a hostile ripple at all. I mean, people really appreciated you saying that and understood from it, but it was just that they hadn't heard anyone say it before. And I think, you know, if you're someone who's heard Gavin stand up and speak, if you're someone who's had a conversation with Mary on the scene, if you've gone down to Glitter and seen that Abdu's bouncing around and having the time of his life, then you feel much less scared of taking that test than if you've got no positive images to look forward to.
And that's where I think services are so important. Like since I started working with Charity Seeking Trust, I have been in the clinics. So I work in the actual clinics themselves. I have had somebody in the room with the consultant getting their diagnosis and taken straight into my room, and they just sit vacant on the bed or on the chair just looking at me. And you have to have the conversation. And the beautiful thing about organizations like ours is, yes, we are professional. Yes, we do maintain that professionalism, but we are not clinical in the sense of we overcomplicate things. We don't say shit if we need to say shit. We'll say things as true as they can be. So we will sit there and we'll be brutally honest with them. But the honesty is a good thing, because the honesty is, you're fine. Let it sink in. This is only going to impact you in certain ways, and those are ways that most people could never even notice. Very few countries you travel to due to the medication. Very few jobs you can't do because of your diagnosis. There's literally maybe 2 jobs that have restrictions, and that's it. And it's a case of people don't understand that. They think, oh, I can't do this, oh, I can't do that, when in reality, you can do it.
But because it's difficult for a lot of people to take a test, we need to find ways of making it much easier. And it's quite interesting that there are some big changes at the moment in the services that are available in Wales. And I'm hoping that those are going to make life easier for people, but there's changes that people have got to get used to. I mean, there's now a new national scheme that you can order a test kit online through the Frisky Wales website, and you can do a little finger prick test at home.
Would you like to see one? I've got one.
Yeah, let's have a look at it.
I actually did a test last night. I'm in a relationship and I had a test before lockdown, but I wanted to do one of these home tests to see what it would feel like before the panel today. So I actually did mine last night.
And how was it?
Well, it was scary, and you read it and there's quite a lot of instructions and there's a lot of washing of hands and different things. But it was okay. Like, it didn't hurt that much. And then I just packaged it off and posted it this morning.
Yeah, I ordered one for if anyone asks me how to do it, so I knew exactly what they were getting, what it looked like, so I could kind of assist anyone that way. And obviously comes in a little box. So from the launch, because I ordered this the day it launched, since then they've updated it. So I think there must have been a bit of feedback that wasn't great, because this was the original information booklet.
Yeah, so it's bigger now.
Yeah, you made a comment about the smallest writing in the world. This is the smallest writing in the world.
Now when you get them, they're a good A4 page, and it's all stuff like that.
It is quite a lot of information. So somebody who hasn't done it before, it can be quite scary to look at. But then in the actual pack itself, there you go.
Yeah.
It has everything that you need. It's all laid out. It's all very easy to use. And then you get obviously your envelope to ship it all back to. It fits in the standard post box. You don't have to go specifically to a post office to do that, because on the bag it does say, I think it's like biomedical or some kind of on there. So it just goes in a normal post box and you get your results usually within like a week.
Yeah, but I just wanted to see what it was like, because I thought that subject might come up. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do one and see how easy it was to use. And it was really easy. It was really easy to apply for and get hold of. It just got posted to the house in a normal envelope and didn't say anything on it. And then you could just do it. You pop it in the plastic envelope and just post it back. It really was as simple.
I put it on my own personal social media, and I had so many messages from people that I may not have spoken to for quite some time, or just random ones that follow me, asking whether or not they were okay to get the test, or if it was just for those identifying as gay or bisexual male. And I was like, nope, anyone can get the test. Go on there if you need to order it. This is what you do. And they would come back and ask questions like, what is PrEP? Because it didn't give a description of what it was. It just asked you, do you need access to it? And then it was like, what test do I need to order? And I'm like, well, what kind of sex have you been having? You know, kind of having this conversation. So it opened up. I'm from a small town in North Wales, so anyone coming from North Wales asking me about this is a major thing for me, because we didn't have conversations about sex. HIV didn't exist on the island. You know, it was one of those things. So having people reach out and actually ask me about this test kit and about the services available was huge. So yeah, it's one of those services that I don't think everybody knows about as of yet. Like, we are trying. There's a few people on the fast track, Cardiff and Vale, that are tweeting about it, trying to get it out as much as we can. But it's services like this that need that wider response, so people actually know this is what we've got here. Get involved.
Yeah. So even though there has been progress made with testing and education, we can't ignore that there still appears to be an undercurrent of HIV stigma within our scene. What is it that we need to do as a community to combat and bring an end to that?
Talk about it. Have the conversations.
Support people like Abdu and Gavin to stand up and talk about it. The rest of us talk about it as well. The fact that, you know, if you get diagnosed, you can live a full life. It's only really dangerous now if you don't get tested. And if you get you can get really ill. People do still die occasionally because they haven't been tested. It's much simpler, although it might feel daunting, to just get that test, check it out, and learn how to take care of yourself, whether you're positive or negative. And talk to the people around you so that people aren't so scared if it happens to them, to be able to actually reach out and ask for help.
And it would be, for me, like, I love the fact that, like, you know, Abdi and Gavin, like, you're out there, you're positive, you're spreading the word. I would love so much more visibility for women living with in the public eye, because that opens up more conversations. It's, if you've got a heterosexual female saying, I am living with HIV, I am HIV positive, it opens up those conversations for heterosexual males and heterosexual females, because that's what the conversation needs to be had. It's not just affecting gay or bisexual men or men that identify as MSM. It affects anybody. And I think more about women living with in the public eye would just break down those walls when it comes to stigma in Wales, because we know they're there. Me and Gavin worked on a documentary, and we had two of my clients that are both females, both heterosexual, one from the BME community, one was white heterosexual, both living with, both diagnosed in very different times, but they were so afraid of having their faces or even their voices shown, they kept hidden. But their stories went worldwide. But it's just having the conversations and actually saying, actually, 42% of people living in Wales that are currently living with HIV are heterosexual.
It's almost like you feel like you want to, like a scene on a movie where, you know, people like myself and Raheem would be marching through the streets, and then, you know, seeing people in their windows thinking, have I got the courage to go and join them, to walk with them and come out, you know? It's almost like, listen, I'll go and stand in your street and I'll shout it out for you if you want me to, you know? And, you know, let's, I don't know, it's about, see, I don't even think about living with HIV anymore. From day to day, I don't even think about it. And that's what I want to scream about, without doing people's heads in.
I think the other thing we should say is you don't have to shout it from the rooftops if you're not that kind of person or not able to, because we have online support groups available, and you can talk to other people living with HIV online, and you don't have to use your own name or anything at first. And one of the things, I used to work for Terence Higgins Trust a while ago now, before Karen, and one of the things we found was that people would start out being very shy on the internet and not wanting, you know, terrified of giving their name or where they lived. And over a period of months, talking to other people living with HIV, they get more and more confident and more able to talk about it. And the more that they talked about it with their friends, the better educated all of their friends got to be. And that's really important, because people need to know how to live with HIV if they've got it, but they also need to learn how to avoid it if they can.
So, Gavin,
but also I think normalizing the conversation around HIV is also essential to make a change. I mean, because I feel sometimes when we talk about HIV, still till this day, we're talking about it as this magnificent thing. It's just a virus, for God's sake. It's just like we don't see it. And like Gavin, like you said, the same thing happened to me. The only time that I remember that I'm HIV positive is when my phone rings for me to take my meds once a day. That's when I remember, or when I do something like this.
Exactly. And Gav, so you got diagnosed in 2001.
Yes.
Is that right? So how long did it take you to become confident enough to speak publicly about it and to reach out to other people?
Well, I'll tell you a skim over my story, if you like. So I remember I was comfortable in it, in myself. My family knew, all my friends knew, but I was happy. I didn't have to advertise it because the people that I loved and surrounded me knew. And then I met up with a guy, just a hookup, one night, and I knew I was safe. And then we met up the one time, and then the second time we've been talking online afterwards for a while, and then he said, look, do you want to hook up again? And I said, yeah, I would like to hook up again. And I wasn't sure where this was going to be going. And, you know, I'm a firm believer of being open and honest from day one. And I came out with it, and he said, how dare you? I'm studying medicine. I couldn't possibly be associated with you. And I was thinking, wow, you were studying medicine, and that is your attitude. And it was then that gave me that nudge, because, you know, TH2 were asking me to do things previously, and I was like, I was, you know, afraid of doing it. And it was that pushed me to go national on the news. And I was like, this ain't happening, because, do you know what? You've just pushed me back for a reason that you can't do. And I'm not going to allow myself to feel downtrodden just because of your ignorance. And yeah, and from then onwards, I'm like, whatever I can do is out there. I remember the night before I went on to the ITV News, and I remember the night before thinking, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? I'm going to get all this backlash. And I put a post on social media thinking, right, I'm just going to test the water, see what the response is. And I think I sat there all night crying, with being overwhelmed by all the support and love for people that maybe have just seen me and were just following me on my social media. And, you know, from people that I know, and they were like, oh my God, this is incredible, because, you know, you've been living with it for so long, and we never knew. It hasn't changed you. So yeah.
Amazing. So we feel like we all just need to talk more. We need to get tested, and we just need to know our status, basically.
And we need to push the services that are being provided by some of the people on this talk and by others to be as up to date and modern as they can be, to provide the best support that we can. I mean, Wales is ahead in some ways, because let's talk a little bit about PrEP, which is the pill that you take to prevent you from getting HIV in the first place. And that is now freely available in Wales. Karen's on television tonight for it, I think.
Now, I didn't know that.
And PrEP, PrEP is available through any sexual health clinic, but usually you have to ask for it. There's not enough people who are being offered it straight away. So, you know, it's up to us to get the word out to people that if you're interested in this and you want to make sure that you know you're negative now, and you want to make sure that you're playing safely, then you probably need to go and ask the clinic about it.
Right, okay. What other services are there available, Karen?
It all depends on what you're looking for, really. Like, I know Glitter Cymru do quite a lot of work. The work that we do across Wales, we've got health promotional teams that will go out to different venues. They'll go to universities, colleges, schools, and do talks. We do a couple of training sessions with the police in the prisons, just to educate them on obviously what it is like living with HIV, what to look for, and how to support people. We work with people living with, at risk of, and affected by. So that could be family members of somebody living with, that could be somebody who may be into sex work or in an abusive relationship. It could be anything like that. And we offer counselling services, peer mentoring. We do what we call practical support and living well services. And that could be helping somebody get back into employment, helping somebody get in their benefits sorted out if, you know, they are unable to work due to multiple illnesses. As Lisa was saying, Wales has got such a high late diagnosis rate that by the time people are getting tested and diagnosed, they would have been living with for so many years, it's caused irreversible damages to their bodies. So we offer quite a lot of support, and we'll liaise and we'll work in conjunction with different areas, and obviously within the sexual health clinics themselves.
Amazing. Amazing. So for anybody out there that's watching that may have just been diagnosed and they are suffering with this self-stigma, what advice would you give to them, Gav or Remy?
You know, get onto social media groups where, you know, there is more of an open forum talking. You know, try and buddy up with somebody that, you know, I know, Karen, you know, there are buddying services on there where you can, you know, get in contact with somebody else that's living with it. You know, there's people are offering that where, you know, you can be anonymous. You know, I mean, everything is at your fingertips these days, which is great. But if you want to talk to somebody, you know, contact people like Karen at the THT, Terence Higgins Trust, because the service they're able to offer and what they provide is extraordinary.
Yeah, the peer mentoring is what you're referring to. So we work with people living with HIV who have been through everything. So they have been through the diagnosis, getting, you know, their own lives together and realizing what they're going to do moving forward, that have maybe gone through the counseling services and, you know, are living perfectly happy and healthy lives. We match them up with anyone like newly diagnosed or anyone struggling. So I can sit there and tell you from a work perspective, you're going to be perfectly fine. Whereas this is a conversation that somebody else has been through exactly what you're going through. So it can be, I'm about to go on a date for the first time since living with, what did you do on this thing? I'm about to tell my parents, how did that go for you? So the peer mentoring allows them to have those open conversations where somebody will say, look, it's shit, you're going to have down days, but you'll have then people lifting you up. So it's that honest lived experience that they get from peer mentoring as opposed to the clinical professional response they get from services.
Realistically, it's very similar to a lot of the advice that you get if you're coming out as LGBT+. Find yourself some mates who've already been through it and have a chat with them.
Right.
For me, I would say allow yourself to be scared, allow yourself to be anxious. It's natural, it's normal. We all been there. We can tell you as much as we can about, oh, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. It is going to be fine. But if you feel that you are scared, be scared. If you feel you're going to cry, just cry. It's okay. But like Karen and Gavin, Lisa has said, share it with your closest friend, with your family members, and prepare, and then get support to be able to share it the right way. But the most important thing, don't let it be in yourself, because you don't have to carry this burden by yourself. Burden, by the way, by yourself. People can help you carry it with you. And studies have shown that people living with HIV who share their status and their livelihood with HIV have more liability to work and to be happier for the long run, and they get to undetectable very quickly. And this is what we should remember, people, that as an HIV person, since I started taking my medication in 2016, my immune system got really high and my virus got very low. That's how I reached undetectable. Now, even if I have sex with somebody or I'm in a relationship, I don't have used condom. And I think that's why Gav is not using a condom in his relationship, because we are both undetectable, so we are not transmitting the virus. Therefore, we are normal.
I hate that. Like the one thing that we said, and it came in that documentary me and Gavin were part of last year, and it was the terminology that people use. It's not a case of you've got HIV or you are a HIV person. You're not. You're living with HIV, and that's the terminology that you need to use. You are living. You're living with something. That doesn't mean you are something. You are not HIV. You know, HIV does not control you. HIV is not going to dictate what you do for the rest of your life. You're living with it, so live, and don't let it hold you back, because you wouldn't let anything else hold you back.
Do you know what? There was a saying on Pose.
True, that's so and
Pose is a series that was just incredible, and it does teach you about what it was like in the 80s. And there's something that one of the nurses say to a patient on there, and I think it's so powerful. It says, when you're diagnosed, you either get busy living or you get busy dying. I mean, everyone's going to live, but mentally you're going to drive yourself crazy on something that really does need no extra thought about, and after you've got over the initial shock.
Do you want to know what my nurse told me? I just had like in 2013, I was living in Morocco. I was like, my doctor gave me the most upfront, like they put me and they give me the positivity, and you gotta live forever, and you are positive, and you are stable, like HIV positive, then you have to have a positive mentality for you to live with it, and I reached the hospital, and the first thing the nurse told me, oh my God, you are just 20 years? You are 20-year-old? You are the age of my son. Oh my God, you ruined your life. There is no more kids for you, no more life for you. I just looked at her and I said, walked away. I was like, demolish everything.
It is that you take with you those first words that somebody says to you.
I know.
Diagnosed. And I remember, I think I'd literally just started working within THT, and it was the first client I had referred to me that was newly diagnosed. I think I was a month into the role, and I was like, oh crap, like what am I going to do? Like, oh, what's going on? And they came in and they sat with me in clinic, and they were just vacant. And they were talking about, you know, their life in general, and they had multiple mental health issues and diagnosis, from borderline personality disorder to bipolar to you name it. They had a list as long as my arm, and it just came out, and I just sat there and I was like, in all fairness, with a rap sheet like yours, HIV is the least of your concern. And they just started laughing. And 2 years on, I still speak to this particular client, and they said to me, I still remember what you said to me, and you were right. This doesn't even come into my life anymore. It's the rest of the stuff that keeps me busy. And it is, take that with you instead of sitting there going, oh, it's your life over with now, love. It's not. You just have to say what works for that person, and, you know, adapt what you're going to say and how you react and how you behave with that person to match them. But you remember what is said to you those very first few days after your diagnosis, and that's why reaching somebody at the beginning of their journey is so important, whether it is the beginning of their journey with PrEP, whether it's the beginning of their journey with the testing side of things and making it normal to test, making it a regular thing. You go to the dentist every 6 months, why don't you test every 6 months? Sexual health.
Can I ask something?
Of course you can.
Karen, does THT does provide community testing or no?
Yeah, so we do testing. We've got a clinic in our office, but we also test in places like the sauna.
Community testing, when like a gay person or a sex worker is providing HIV testing for their peers, or no? That's what I meant.
No, so we do the testing out in the community, and it can be for anyone. It's not just LGBT. We'll test wherever's needed. It's predominantly LGBT because it is like the saunas and the venues in that sense. But we've got a clinic which is an open clinic. So it's not just a clinic for MSM, it's open. So anyone can come in and test with us, and we have the conversations with them. We won't just test somebody for the sake of testing somebody. We'll have those open conversations with them, and we assess the risk with them. We assess how they're going to manage the test, whether it comes back as a positive or as a reactive result. Are they going to be safe to go home after this point? Do they have the support in place if this has come back either way? So they can come in and we can do that testing in our office with us.
But let's be honest, I mean, I think THT provides a great service, you know, and I've got nothing but respect for you, Karen. But in terms of the number of people who are out there, it's the tip of an iceberg. There are so many more people who we could be supporting to test, who really need to look after their sexual health and aren't getting those messages at the moment. And I guess that's why we're all getting together to try and change that.
And that's where the home testing pilot is key, like all the rural areas in Wales and all those people that don't want to go to a sexual health clinic in case they see somebody they might know, or they don't want to go to the GP to get these answers because the GP receptionist is in school with their daughter or son, or it's the so-and-so's cousin in smaller places. So this home testing kit, that's the postal kit that's going out at the moment, is amazing, and it's such a good thing to be happening alongside now PrEP being widely available. Those conversations are gonna start happening more than they would have done previously to this.
And I can't recommend that home test enough, because it was clear, it was concise, it was easy to do. you didn't even have to try and pee in the little bottle. It came with a squeezy carton, which you put it in the carton and then it pours easy. So you're not left with all pee all over your arms and everything, because it does, doesn't it? It builds up quick and then it shoots everywhere when you have to do it in the doctors or whatever. But it was so easy to use, and the little things to prick your finger, there's 3 of them in there. So like my one hand didn't work, so I used the other one, and it was just so clear and concise, and I really cannot recommend. Where can other people get I can't remember where I ordered this from.
You get it from the Frisky Wales website, but it's the easiest way is to go and have a look on Twitter, find some of the tweets from Fast Track Cardiff and Vale, and there's a link in them which takes you straight to the page where you can order the test. So you don't have to work your way through the whole website or anything. And I would really recommend to people, follow if you're interested in this, if you're thinking about maybe doing something, follow Terence Higgins Trust on social media, follow Fast Track Cardiff, keep an eye out for what's going on, because, there are new services, there are changes happening, and we're trying to make it easier for people. Because the thing is, you think, oh, maybe I should have a test, but you can't be bothered to take the time off work to go into a clinic.
That's the thing. I always think, oh, I'll book it in next week and I'll go in and blah, 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 and then I go out the night before and then I wake up and I'm like, oh. So then I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered. And then I'll go next week. And then next week comes and I've gone out again and I've had a drink, and then in the morning, I don't know. So the home test was just perfect for me, because I ordered it. It came literally a week afterwards. Boom, 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 done, in the post today. So,
I think we just, it's much more convenient for a lot of people. And we also need to promote the kind of testing that Terence Higgins Trust has, where you get your own results, because for some people, they don't want to wait. They don't want to send it off and send it back. There's a security in that, because you know that you're going to get a fast track referral into services if you need help. But some people just want to test themselves, and I'd like to see those tests much more freely available from pharmacists or from GPs. We're going to be doing a pilot on that later in the year, which several of the people who are around this table right now are going to be helping with.
The testing kits themselves are so easy to use, and your results are there within 10 minutes. And it's obviously, you can, if you want to. My advice to anyone doing the home testing kits themselves is, before you do the test, look up your local services. Have the information ready. So if you're in Wales, look up the Cymru office. If you're anywhere else, look up your local office. If it comes back and you just want some advice on the results, at least you've got that to hand, instead of doing the test, having that anxiety, and then not knowing what to do and not being able to search for something. Just get the details of your local offices and services just before you do it. Make sure you've got the support around you, because if you're that anxious and nervous around it, whether it comes back as a reactive result or whether it comes back as a negative result, you're going to feel like you've been hit by a bus either way, because all that anxiety and the build up from doing it is got to go somewhere. So just make sure you've got that support in place, that somebody knows what you're doing, or you've got someone to talk to and you've got all the information to hand. Do the test and it'll be over literally before you know it. It's a matter of minutes.
Kat, can I ask? I was told once by a consultant that, do you know, if I went to Newport or a different city to have a test, I know obviously it's going to, I don't know how much, with the home testing kit, say for instance, if I took that test, what are the chances, because I'm undetectable and there's so little blood that you're taking with that home testing kit, the chances could come back that it'd be negative?
Unlikely. It's more than likely still going to come back as the home testing kit that you get. This is why you'll hear me, I never say it comes back as a positive result. We always say a reactive result. So what it will do is that test will come back showing a reactive result. So it will come back showing that there is something in your blood system, something in there indicating a positive result. But we'll never say to you that is a positive. It will always say reactive, and then you would be sent normally then for confirmation testing. So that's when you'd be referred back to your sexual health clinic, where they'll take a blood sample and get you tested there. But the home testing kits, it will probably, more than likely, will show up as a reactive result. It won't come back as a negative, because yes, it suppressed the virus so much that you are undetectable, but the virus is still present.
Sure.
Because I remember a couple of years ago, I had a home kit, and it took like 1 drop of blood, and then you turned it upside down and left it on the side for 20 minutes or whatever, and then it showed up. And I always thought, well, that wasn't very much blood. But I was surprised how much blood those home kits took.
Yeah, they're different.
Because you have to fill it to the line, don't you?
Yeah, the home testing, so the postal kit are testing for multiples. It's testing for syphilis, HIV, hepatitis. So it needs more of a sample to be able to test for each individual one, whereas the HIV test kits are just testing for the one virus. And the new test kits now are like a little test tube, and you have your obviously your fingerprint done, and it's more of a just touching the tip of the test tube on your blood. It takes the smallest amount, and you can just see it kind of going up. But yeah, the home testing ones, you require more.
Yeah.
But even if it was like just the home testing kit, even if it's just, you said the irradiant. What is the term you used?
Reactive.
It's not positive, but it's
Reactive.
That's the word. Thank you. Reactive. But studies have shown that I think even like in THT, you use the one that you take in here, and then you use that. That's the one you use, no? The fast one.
Yeah. Yes. The fast. There's multiple different generations when it comes to the fast tests. So people use different ones. The one that we use is different generation to the one used in the NHS and certain sexual health clinics. So the different ones will show up at different stages. Some will show after.
No, but it's not the duration, but the result itself. But it is unlikely that if it's positive here, you're gonna go to the clinic and it's gonna be negative. It's most of the time positive here. It's positive also in the clinic as well. So I think that the discussion now in Morocco, because I'm aware of what happens in Morocco more, that if it's positive, you don't have to go and do a test anymore. You just go to check your viral load and all that automatically, because it's a waste of money and it's a waste of resources to just repeat, because every time the test is positive, when we repeat the test in the clinic, it's positive again. It's like nobody from like the down when they started doing HIV tested in Morocco, no one came back negative. So
yeah, there's guidance in place and process in place. We have to send for confirmation testing. A lot of that is also to do with the follow-up. So if you do the home testing kit and it comes back reactive, if you were told that you wouldn't have to go and see anybody to get confirmation testing, you may not do anything about it. Whereas if you are going for your confirmation testing to either get to the positive or the negative result, then at least you're going to be in touch with that sexual health clinic and they can then treat you. Whereas if they're told it's a definitive yes or no answer kind of thing, they may not then reach out for further services. So yeah, we have to send off for confirmation testing.
Not just that, it could have got mixed up. I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's always worth doing what we might call belt and braces, but I understand why in a resource-poor country you need to be careful about that stuff. You may have different thresholds for what you're doing, and I can see why that would happen.
Oh, we've lost Mary.
We seem to have lost the Baroness. She's flown.
But yeah, with the confirmation side of things, there has been I couldn't tell you what the numbers are, but there have been ones that have come back as a negative, and they've been a false positive or a reactive test. So the confirmation testing it will normally show you if a test has not worked. So it will come up that it's not worked, and then you just do another test. But it is just a case of sometimes you will get the faintest of line on there. So the confirmation testing is just to ensure that we are giving you the correct information and the services are there. But I don't think we're ever going to change. We're always going to do the confirmation testing when it comes to fast tests.
I think the thing is people want to be sure, and if you have got HIV, it's incredibly important to know, because then you can live well, you can get on treatment, And the really fascinating thing is that, hello dear, the research
Hello.
actually now shows that you might even live longer with HIV, because actually you'll get much better medical care. You get such regular checkups. So you've got a chance to be really healthy.
In other words, we are immortals.
Not quite got there yet. Just feels like it sometimes.
So in wrapping this up now, we all want everybody to get tested and know their status. We want people to talk more openly about HIV and sexual health. We want people to get rid of that stigma and the myths of HIV throughout the communities, and for people not to be scared and to know that there are other people out there living full, happy, healthy lives, and that people are living with HIV and that they are not HIV. Yeah. Is there anything else that, or any advice or anything that we would like to give to anyone, or anything that anybody would like to say to anybody watching that may be thinking of getting tested? Yeah, go on, Raheem.
Well, I always like to say this because it's really important, because like we say, the first words that an HIV positive person hear is very important. I'm going to say to the person who is not HIV positive, but a friend of him or hers come to her to share their stories, their story with them. I just want you to listen and to be with open arms, because you are one of the person who's going to affect a person's life forever. And also, if you don't know how to support the person, just ask them, how can I support you? Just ask the question and just listen. And that's what helps me a lot, because in my coming out as HIV positive, I found a lot of people who just willing just to listen, and listening helps finding people who listen to me, from friends, from family, from peers, just to listen to me helps me, and helped me to stay positive and to stay alive and to be with you today. So listen.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you ask a question that could be a little bit offensive, if you're asking it because you want to educate yourself, people are not going to be offended. They'll be more, happy that you've taken the time to ask, to learn, to know what it is. And I can't say enough how much I agree with what you said, that if a friend or a family member come to you to ask you for support or advice, or to disclose to you something very personal to them, take a second before you speak. Listen to what they're saying to you. Don't react in a harsh or judgmental way because you don't understand it. Just make sure you are there for them, and if you can't be there for them, then do it properly. Don't be mean about it, because you are paving the way. You are going to be setting them on a path, whether it's a positive path or a negative path. You're the one that's going to be pushing them forward.
No pressure.
Exactly.
I kept freezing there. My video kept freezing. Thank you. Lisa?
Really, I think people have said everything. Educate yourself. If you're embarrassed to ask questions, go and ask the internet. Don't believe everything you read. Have a good look through it.
Ask THT.
Yes, ask
Call
THT.
THT.
Gavin?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly what everyone else has said. But, I don't know if Karen can read off the websites where you can actually get the correct, or Lisa would know as well, the correct, the better websites to have a look on.
I would say, and I'll say it to save Karen's blushes, the Terence Higgins Trust website is very good. It's got a lot of information on it. If you're the kind of person who likes scientific knowledge, then I would say AIDS Map is really, really good. They have a lot of reporting from scientific conferences, if that's your kind of thing. And go from those outwards. Find out about, if you're from a particular group of people, be that gay men or a trans person, you'll find that there are specialist support groups and specialist websites out there that will help you. And just explore. Don't let a diagnosis of HIV make you go inward on yourself. let it help you go outward and look at all those things that are out there and all those options, because you've got a long life, so you might as well live it.
Right.
And that's it. Like, yes, it's a very serious conversation, and yes, you know, it's something that you're going to be living with for the rest of your life, but you're still living, you're not dead. Go out, enjoy. Just because it's a heavy conversation to have, it doesn't mean it's a sad conversation to have. You know, be happy, have a happy conversation about it. People will have some rather amusing and funny stories to tell through their journey of living with a diagnosis. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. Everybody's different and everybody has that story. So yeah, it's live your life how you want to live your life. And just touching back on the THD website, if you do go on there and contact them, the really good thing about it is they will signpost you to local services. So if you were to come on there and say that, you know, you want support and you live in a particular area, they will then pass that on to the local office. So the local office then will pick it up, and they will then be able to signpost you to organisations like Glitter, for example, if that is what is going to be a better service for you. But yeah, just reach out, and just don't be afraid to reach out. You know, I say there's no stupid questions. There are stupid questions, but I quite enjoy them. Yeah, just reach out and talk about it. Like, this is what we're here for.
Brilliant. So just to wrap up now, we want people to get tested, we want people to talk more, we want people to support each other and to live their lives. Yeah. So thank you to Lisa, thank you Karen, thank you Gav, thank you for me, and I've been Baroness Mary Golds, and I'm telling you, be nicer to each other and get tested.